it's a little terrifying because you absolutely cannot miss.
Goalies now are completely at a premium.
Not, right? Like, Canada doesn't have a ton of great options.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another playoff edition of the Hockey News Big Show. I'm your host, Katie Gaus, back from the IR, joined by my co-hosts, Michael Traikos and Ryan Kennedy. Guys, I circumvented the cap a little bit, but I'm here. I'm ready to go. I'm excited to talk playoff hockey. And we've got a really hot topic right off the start to kick things off. So I've got 3 words. I think you already know what they are. Toronto Maple Leafs. Oh boy, they have failed to end this series and move on to the second round twice now. Big game 6 coming soon. Chris Tanev said after game 5, we're up 3-2. I think we're fine. I hope that doesn't come back to be a haunting quote. We shall see. But do you agree? Are the Leafs fine, Michael? Or is there something happening again?
Well, when you said 3 words, Katie, I thought you were going to say choke, chokers, and choking. Like, just like however ways you want to say it. Like, this feels very familiar. I know they were up 3-0, but once again, elimination games. It's like you get the Leafs in the regular season or Leafs in the first 3 games of a playoff series, and then you get the Leafs when the games actually matter. And when the games actually matter, it's, historically proven that Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Tavares, the big 4 don't show up. And, going into game 6, it's going back to Ottawa. I think that Ottawa, you take away all the penalties they've taken and just the special teams, which actually is tipping towards Ottawa's side. This series is closer than, it was at 3-0. And right now, Ottawa's feeling good about their game. And Toronto, it's starting to feel like, oh boy, here we go again.
It is. It's getting a little scary. Ryan, what's the temperature? What do you think?
I don't know. I'm kind of with Chris Tanev on this one, where, I mean, I never expected this to be a sweep. I think originally I said it was going to be Leafs in 6, so I'm not too concerned in that regard. Yeah, they won the first 3 games, and yes, the core 4 need to be better. But I think about those guys that don't have the burden of history, right? Anthony Stolarz doesn't worry about choking. Chris Tanev doesn't worry about it. Oliver Ekman-Larsson doesn't worry about it. Craig Berube doesn't worry about it. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to take a team effort, and it's a very game Ottawa squad. But ultimately, it felt like it has felt like a different series for the Leafs. They seem a lot more chill.
Yeah. And I think when you kind of consider how it happened, maybe that's what's making it more polarizing, right? Like, oh, wow, they went up. It was so easy. They were going to end it. It was almost over. And having it be kind of 2 in a row is maybe adding to it, because I agree with you. I mean, you look at the series, you look at the overtime games, it could have been 2-2. I mean, it could have been very different. It didn't work out that way. But Leafs in 6 certainly isn't something that is completely out of this world to think about. But when you look forward to game 6, how much pressure is there on winning this one as opposed to going into the 7? And do we expect any lineup changes? I know there's been a lot of talk about, are we going to see a different goalie? What do you expect the Leafs to roll out?
Yeah, I don't expect them to make a goalie change. Like, Craig Berube kind of poured cold water on that notion following game 5. But, they had Max Pacioretty in for the last 2 games. They lost both games. Maybe it's time to go back to a Nick Robertson, add a little bit more speed, because I would argue that Pacioretty hasn't really made a huge impact. But kind of going back to Ryan's point, like, I get it, Ryan. Like, you've got Tanev, you've got Stolarz, and a lot of guys that weren't there. My only thing is those guys aren't your impact players. They're not your core. They're not the guys that I'm looking at when, you're down 1-0. And the Leafs were down 1-0, and they had a power play, and it was Matthews giving up the puck, and it was William Nylander not skating hard on a back check. For me, that's indicative of why this team hasn't been able to get over the hump. So, I'm looking not at Tanev to get them over the hump tonight. I'm looking at, hey, Austin Matthews, what do you got? 1 goal right now. You're the captain. You're getting paid so much money. Now's the time to really show, basically do what Connor McDavid has been doing in Edmonton, take over the game. Like, you look at the Oilers versus the Leafs, who am I noticing on the highlights? It's Draisaitl, it's McDavid. It's not, their 4th line winger or their, defensive defenseman.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Leafs came out a lot more similar to game one than the rest of the series. And, if they certainly could go run and gun. I know that's not Craig Berube's style, but if you're going to overwhelm an Ottawa team that doesn't have as much experience as you do, and get on Ullmark, which was so successful for them in the first two games, this is probably the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say you can sort of burn the game because there's going to you have the luxury of a game 7, but I think the Leafs can take some more chances in game 6 because even though they're the favorite, again, technically they're playing with house money in game 6.
Yeah, it does feel like though going into Ottawa is a better opportunity for them to get away from the home crowd, maybe taking a little bit of a pressure off. But I mean, again, even if we were to see a game 7, it's not the end of the world. Nobody needs to burn any more of their jerseys. RIP to that Marner jersey that didn't make it. But how about this, guys? So even if the Leafs win this series, which is totally possible, we're talking about it right now, has this changed your mind at all? The way they've played against Ottawa recently here about them being a contender. They get to the second round. Is it a reset, or has this made you think, maybe this team still isn't where it needs to be?
I feel fine about them. I mean, the big problem is we know they're going to play Florida.
I was just going to say, yeah,
right?
that's tough.
But I think it's going to be a very different series than the Florida Tampa one, which was like all venom all the time.
Yes.
Somebody getting hit in an abhorrent fashion pretty much every single game, and coaches having their own words thrown in their face like every single game. I think it's going to be, more low event. And even though these teams are rivals and you have your Sam Bennett and your Brad Marchand, who have antagonized the Leafs for years, again, like this feels like a different vibe in Toronto. And you don't want to go toe to toe with the Panthers in their style. So that means like giving a special note to Max Domi not to do anything stupid, just play the game and try to get back to that hockey that made you so successful in the regular season.
Yeah, I wonder if Florida's looking at Toronto though, Ryan, and thinking, okay, all we have to do is clog the middle of the ice, keep it to a 1-0, 2-1 kind of score and stay out of the penalty box because that's really been where where Ottawa has really kind of, had success is staying out of the box. Obviously, does them well, except when they're scoring shorthanded goals. But the other thing is, they're blocking a lot of shots. They're not allowing anything up the middle. They're not allowing that, the Leafs to play run and gun hockey. Like, I don't know how many breakaways we saw from William Nylander in the regular season, but that's been cut down dramatically. I'm not seeing, Marner really display a ton of that skill that we saw in the regular season. And, Matthews, part of the reason why he hasn't exploded on offense is he's got Pinto draped all over him. So it doesn't get easier if you're playing Florida. You're going to get Barkov as a matchup. And, if you can't score with Pinto on you, good luck scoring with a guy who's probably going to win another Selke this year.
Yeah.
So, my thoughts, I don't know if they've changed. I've always thought that the Leafs, were going to be one of those outside picks for a contender to win the cup. Like I had them, I think, around 5 when we did our last Elite 8. I probably still have them around that spot. I think it's going to come down to, can Anthony Stolarz, build upon what he's doing here? And are the Leafs going to, is this early scare, if they do get past Ottawa, is it enough to kind of get them saying, okay, we don't want to do that again. Do not take your foot off the gas and just keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of teams who have even more expectations of being contenders that are also facing some scares. We saw what was happening with Vegas and Minnesota, even with Winnipeg and St. Louis. I mean, those series are far from over. So sometimes it's just that first round, man, can be very hard to get through. And then it's maybe a little more smooth sailing, but not if you're running into the Panthers. We will see. However, one series we already know is set to go for round 2 is Carolina and Washington. So certainly going to be interesting seeing Rod Brindamore's style matching up with what we've seen from the Capitals. I guess, guys, just expectations. We don't have to get too in depth as the series gets going, but what are kind of the expectations for what you expect between these two teams, and maybe give us a little prediction?
I mean, I think it's going to be a pretty close series. I wouldn't be surprised if it went 7. It's interesting because these are the two teams that had the least resistance in their first round matchups.
Yeah.
Like the Devils were like
Yeah.
hobbled by injuries.
Right.
Montreal was I'm not saying they were just happy to be there, but it was, I'm sure their fans were happy that they were there. And this was
Yeah.
like a stepping stone that we did not expect right away from the Habs. To me, it's going to come down to goaltending because I think Logan Thompson, particularly in that final game against Montreal, proved just how good he has been this year. And, him coming up in clutch time when the Habs were just like swarming at the end there. Carolina, obviously, Anderson was good, got hurt. Kucherov's been good for them as well. I just feel like Carolina playoff hockey has only gone so far under Brind'Amour historically. And I feel like the Caps, they're a big, heavy team. They can get to the middle of the ice. That might be the edge they need to move on.
Yeah.
I kind of completely agree there with Ryan.
Yeah.
I think it is going to come down to goaltending. And I got really worried when Anderson went down, and then Kucherov looked so bad on those those initial goals. But then, I'm kind of feeling a little bit better about how he's been playing. Logan Thompson might be the best goalie right now in the playoffs. That's how good he's been for Washington. I give the Caps a slight edge. I think they could either win in 6 or 7. I just think that, whatever I thought about the Capitals in the regular season has started to dissipate. I don't see a whole lot of weaknesses. They know their identity so well. You're looking at a Tom Wilson there that just strikes fear in whoever is on the ice against them. So that's a huge component of it. The fact that Alex Ovechkin is heating up, and I don't know if we can even say heating up because he's just been red hot basically all season. But they're really, they don't have an issue when you're looking up and down their lineup. They just feel like a team that is so confident, knows what kind of style they need to play to be successful, and give full marks to Spencer Carberry because, the job he's doing there in terms of working in the veterans and the young guys and really kind of keeping this team on track from the beginning to right now. I think that really gives me a lot of confidence that Washington could easily get to the conference final here.
Yeah, I've kind of got Washington pegged as my pick as well. I feel like when you bring the goaltending into it, I mean, maybe if we weren't dealing with an injury already from Carolina, it would be a slightly different story. But with the way Thompson's playing, I still give him, the little bit of the nod. And again, I just feel like we've seen this before from the Hurricanes. First round, they're good. They always seem to find a way through that one. I mean, we saw the record that Rod Brind'Amour sent. Was it 7 straight seasons to start as his coaching career goes past round 1? Like, it's great consistency, but it always seems to end right in that second round for the most part. So I'm just not sure, especially with, like you said, what we talked about leading into the playoffs. That was a team, Washington, where we really were not sure what to expect from them. Could they keep this going? I think they've answered a lot of those questions, even though they didn't have the hardest first round matchup, maybe you could argue. But either way, it'll be interesting. It'll be a good matchup. Let's talk real quickly, guys. We don't need to spend a ton of time on this one, but it's become a pretty big story already. Offsides reviews. We saw what happened in that Minnesota-Vegas game. I mean, that's a game-changing moment in the series. Vegas obviously goes on to win after that goal from Ryan Hartman does get called back. There was a review for a kicking motion. It gave them time to check out the offsides. It was centimeters, inches. It was so close. And it just feels like that's not what this review rule was really intended for. So there's comments online saying this is ruining hockey. But what do you think? I mean, is it going too far? Have these offsides reviews gotten out of hand?
Yeah, they completely gone out of hand. And, our colleague Ken Campbell wrote a column saying that the league should, think about being able to review headshots that weren't penalized. So, there's some people who are calling for even more reviews, and I don't blame them. Like, if you have the technology, if we're going to challenge whether we're talking centimeters or inches or whatever metric system you want to use to define measurement here, whether that foot or puck is over the line, then why not open up reviews? My whole point is, it's going against the spirit of the initial rule. We don't want to see egregious non-calls define a game, but at the same time, I don't think fans really want to be waiting around the rink going, oh yeah, we're reviewing the review of the review. and it's taken an extra 10 minutes. So I'm old school. I think that, less reviews is probably better, but I think we can't go back. You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube right now.
Yeah. No, I would agree with you, Mike. And the only thing I would add is video coaches have become absolutely integral parts of NHL teams, more so in recent years because of those video challenges. And, these are people that have to work super fast and make sure that they are absolutely sure about what they believe they have seen because of the stakes at hand. So that to me is kind of an interesting evolution of that position.
Yeah.
And of course, during the playoffs, I mean, it might have turned that Vegas-Minnesota series.
Yeah, no, it did. And it's so funny too.
I'm completely with you. Like Toronto wins a offside review and they're like, big ups to the video coach. In a lot of ways, he's more important than the associate coach on the bench.
Yeah, and I saw somebody posting online, and this is something that would be crazy, is now that we have all this AI, like go back and put all these goals from historic playoff games through a system. How many of these major goals were potentially offsides, right? That we didn't have the technology. I mean, that people would start going crazy if you started putting that out there. But there are totally going to be moments where this happened. But again, if it's not these egregious missed calls, that's not really the point. So certainly slowing the game down, maybe being exploited, but hey, credit to the video coaches because they're getting their names on the cup and they're earning it more than ever now. All right, well, let's talk about some first round fun. Most surprising series so far. We've obviously seen a lot of good ones. Some are over, some are still very much hot and heavy. So which series has stood out for you? Surprising? Maybe it's a good thing, a bad thing. What do you like?
Surprising from a bad point. Like I'm in a playoff pool and I have like half my players from Tampa Bay. So you weren't on that show, Katie, but myself and Steve Warren both picked Tampa Bay to go to the final. I picked them to beat Colorado. So I'm looking like the worst hockey analyst right now. I blame Kucherov. The guy's either red hot or he just checks out. But for me, that's the surprising one. Not that Florida won necessarily, but in the fashion that they won, and it's just. Yeah. It's deflating for me.
No, I have my bracket challenge, and I had Tampa in the finals too. Yeah, I'm dying. It just the way they ended the regular season. I know, and people in Florida, if they're listening to this, I'm sorry. Please don't hate me. It really, I'm happy for you. I was cheering for you. It was more just purely based on the end of the regular season, and there were question marks with Florida. We talked about this. Kachuk's been missing. Ekblad's not going to be in the first two games. Yeah. Are these guys all going to mesh and be able to pick up from game one the way that they did? Ekblad wasn't even playing in the last game here because of the 2-game suspension. I mean, they had a lot to battle. It didn't affect them at all. They literally looked like vintage Florida Panthers Stanley Cup hockey, and it's scary what they did to Tampa. I don't know if it's more Florida or Tampa. Feels like it was a lot more Florida. They're someone that I'm pretty worried about going far in a good way. So we'll see what happens. Ryan, who's surprising for you?
Well, for me, it's the Edmonton-Los Angeles series. LA wins the first 2 games, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is the year that they finally conquer the Oilers. Edmonton did not have Matthias Ekholm in the lineup, their best defenseman. So it's like, yeah, we get it. Stuart Skinner was, ping-ponging around all season long. And then all of a sudden, the Oilers took over. Like LA, I don't know what happened to them. Obviously there was the Byfield gaffe. There was the bad challenge by Jim Hiller. But I mean, props to the Oilers for actually getting it done. And, Calvin Pickard, he hasn't been the reason, as Mike was saying earlier, McDavid and Draisaitl are leading the way. Evan Bouchard has been both good and bad, but more good than bad lately. So he seems to be the bellwether of this series. But now the question is, can Los Angeles get back in? Or is this one just done? And I think it's legit. Game's in Edmonton. It's not going to be a fun matchup.
No, I mean, I don't know what happened. The harmonicas that had everybody rolling in the first 2 games, and all of a sudden it just took a turn, and, you gotta give credit to the Stars on Edmonton for doing exactly what they needed to. But yeah, I mean, goaltending certainly was something that we talked about being a major concern, and it kinda lived up to that. Skinner was not good enough, and then all of a sudden, Calvin Pickard, here we go. It sure helps when you've got guys like, McDavid and Draisaitl putting the goals up in front of you, but he's certainly contributing. So good for him. All right, with all these good series, we've got some good candidates, I'd say, for some first round MVPs. So who has caught your eye? Who has stepped up in a way that is worthy of being the MVP for their team to kick off the playoffs?
Well, I'll stick with Edmonton. Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, two of the top scorers
Right.
in the NHL for playoff scoring right now. McDavid's right at the top. And I mean, this is what you expect from these two, right? Like, they are that ultimate dynamic duo. And when their team needs them the most, that's when they play their best. So
Right.
for me, especially because Edmonton has the lead in that series, I'll go with McDavid and Draisaitl.
Ryan, can you give that pep talk to the Toronto Maple Leafs before Game 6, please?
That's right.
When you need them the most, you show up.
Exactly.
I'm gonna stick in the West. I'm gonna say Winnipeg's Kyle Connor.
Oh,
4
all right.
goals, 2 of which are game winners, 8 points in 5 games. A lot of talk about Connor Hellebuyck not being the Connor Hellebuyck that he was in the regular season. Well, on the flip side, Kyle Connor has been everything he's in the regular season and some. So, last night Mark Scheifele goes down for an extended period of time, and that's when you need other players to step up. And once again, Mr. Jersey flapping speed there, Kyle Connor has just been so good for Winnipeg. And it's no surprise. Like, you look at his playoff stats, underrated in the regular season. I would argue underrated in the playoffs because, even if Winnipeg goes out in previous years, you look at Kyle Connor, he hasn't been the reason. So that's my pick right now.
Yeah, and I mean, again, one of the big variables with Winnipeg going into this was, is Connor Hellebuyck going to figure it out? He has not been as excellent as we expect him to be because of his regular season numbers. So guys got to step up. Guys got to score goals if the goalie can't make every save that you need him to. So those are good picks. All right, well, how about this? Biggest surprise for a player. This can be good surprise. This can be bad surprise. Who is making waves one way or the other?
I'm going to Nikita Kucherov. And Katie, before we recorded, you said it's all-star game Kucherov that we're seeing right now.
It kind of
and also a playoff Kucherov. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't long ago that this guy had 32 points in 23 games, helping Tampa Bay win the cup. The year before, he had 34 points. Even when they
Right.
lost to Colorado, 27 points. Well, in the last 3 playoffs combined, he has 1 goal. All right, 1 goal from a guy that won the Art Ross,
Oh,
is
man.
arguably a top 3, maybe even a top 2 player in the league. Just not good enough. Like, I don't know how Kucherov can go from 37 goals in the regular season to no goals in 5 games against Florida. Just not the performance you need out of your best player.
And I'm going to add this in really quick because I actually just pulled up Twitter. Nikita Kucherov, Hart Trophy finalist as well now. So the finalists are Connor Hellebuyck, Leon Draisaitl, and Nikita Kucherov. So
Really?
little breaking news
Connor
there.
Hellebuyck is a
Kind of
surprise to me.
interesting. No,
Not Nathan McKinnon.
no McKinnon. Hellebuyck gets what feels like McKinnon's spot, right? If you had to put a third in there, I'd be swapping those two. So
Wow.
got some.
Everyone I talked to had picked McKinnon in their ballot, so I'm just
like, where did these
really
guys come?
shocked about that.
That is wild. Yeah.
So, all right, we'll talk more about that.
I
in a
had
second.
Cooch for the record.
You did.
I didn't.
I feel dumb now, but
There's been a lot of that today. It's all right. All right, biggest surprise for you, Ryan.
I'm going to keep it positive. I'm going to go with Cam Fowler in St. Louis. I think he has 8 points. This is a guy that was basically like left for dead in Anaheim. We thought like, he's just going to kind of semi-retire out in the OC, but he has been a revelation for the Blues since he got to St. Louis. And, for a team that, again, like, they were not in the playoff picture for the first half, and then they came on super strong and had that amazing second half. Fowler was a big part of it. And, it just goes to show that sometimes a change of scenery is what a veteran needs. And yeah, it's almost hilarious how many points Cam Fowler has put up in the first round.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely the one that's made the most headlines in terms of like, if we're just talking straight up surprises, because again, like he was acquired and it was almost a head scratcher in a way because they're like, were the Blues going for it? Like, we're not sure. At that point, like they were heating up, but it wasn't like a full on thing the way it is now. And everyone's
Yeah.
like, all right, this is an interesting move. Certainly paid off. So give a lot of credit to him. Change of scenery has done him very well. All right. Let's get to a little league news. One of the biggest storylines going around has been every day there's a different coach in and out and so much going on. We saw Sullivan out in Pittsburgh, Rick Tocchet out in Vancouver. This carousel is crazy. There are so many vacancies right now. So let's focus in just on Sullivan and Tocchet real quick. Where do we see each of these guys potentially landing?
I mean, for me, Rick Tocchet seems like a pretty good option for the New York Rangers. New York, clearly a team that needed a culture change. Tocchet is a big culture guy. He has familiarity with JT Miller. We know that. And it feels like they're probably on the same wavelength.
Good
in
familiarity.
Terms of, yeah.
He's like, JT, no, take me with you.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, that one feels like a pretty good option. And then, I mean, with Sullivan, I mean, maybe he goes to Vancouver, right? Like, if you talk to people in the coaching industry, if you talk to coaches, you talk to people at the NHL Coaches Association, they will tell you Mike Sullivan is one of the most respected voices in that community. And, I mean, we know he was kind of hamstrung in Pittsburgh by the rosters he was given and kind of the directives he was given in terms of like going for it. I think in Vancouver, he could have a pretty positive impact pretty quickly.
He couldn't convince Quinn Hughes, though, to come to the Four Nations, so it will be tough. I like those picks. I think both coaches are going to be in such high demand. I'm going to go a little different, though. Okay, Rick Tocchet to Pittsburgh. I think no one wants to coach the Penguins except if Sidney Crosby's calling you and saying, hey, Rick, you want to come back? And you're my assistant coach. We got a great relationship here. Can you come back? I think that would make a lot of sense on a lot of levels. It's going to take Tocchet to kind of really kind of swallow hard and go, all right, is this team even going to be a playoff team next year? It's going to be a tough one. In regards to Sullivan, his son-in-law, Charlie McAvoy, plays for the Bruins. Obviously, Sullivan's a mass guy. So I think him going to Boston makes a lot of sense. That being said, I see where you're going with Vancouver. Obviously, him and Sullivan and Rutherford have a bit of a history there. So, you could, there's 7 degrees of separation basically between every NHL coach and every NHL team. But for me, Sullivan to Boston, a huge upgrade over Joe Sacco. And, I'm really high on the Bruins this offseason. I think that all they're missing is a couple free agents and maybe a top 5 pick. And we could see Boston not only back in the playoffs, but back in actually cup contention. So if you add Sullivan to the mix, I'd be really happy with that just because I keep saying it on Twitter and people keep shutting me down.
I like it. No, these are good picks. I mean, the hockey world is so crazy like that. And like you mentioned, there's a million, you can find a connection to just about anywhere, truthfully, with a lot of these teams. Oh, former player, the GM and this guy played together. It's just the way that the world works, and it's why we see so much recycling. It's been fun to see some of the new names. I'll throw out that Pat Ferschweiler, fresh off a national championship, had interviewed with Philadelphia. So again, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. It's also interesting to keep an eye on what's going on with the Islanders, because obviously they need a new GM now that Lou Lamoriello was out. Will that cause there to be a change with their head coaching position? Maybe they're like, ooh, a couple good guys are on the market now. Is Patrick Roy still the guy that we want for the future? So we'll keep an eye on it. But going to be a lot of movement and maybe more guys still getting out. I haven't seen anything happen with Nashville yet, and that kind of feels like a job where we could see a change as well. All right, well, we just mentioned it earlier. Let's talk about it really quickly. Hart Trophy finalists, because I had the awards on our list of things to get to today. I think we can all agree we are very surprised that Nathan MacKinnon is not on there. Just what do you guys think? I mean, in terms of, I guess, what are the evaluators looking at if they're choosing Hellebuyck? Is this just they want something different? Is it a recency thing? What do you see?
Well, in regards to Mackinnon, the one thing that, and maybe voters galaxy brain this too much, but Cale Makar is going to win the Norris. He was a Ted Lindsay finalist. By definition, the Hart Trophy is the player adjudged to be most valuable to his team. I know people really take that literally and say, well, if Makar was a Norris Trophy winner, then how could Mackinnon be the most valuable player to his team? You've got the best defenseman, and then you've got a forward. It doesn't make sense. So that's my only thinking, that maybe people are like, well, take Hellebuyck out of that lineup in Winnipeg, that Jets team looks so different. You take Mackinnon out, well, they still got Makar.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Yeah. Overthinking it a little bit, but
I'm not saying I believe it, Ryan. Oh, I know. No, I know. I just but
it's just like being McKinnon.
McKinnon has been he could, I thought he was going to go back-to-back Harts. He was number one on my ballot. And I understand what you're saying. I hope that's not the logic, because then how does Kucherov get on when he has Hagel, Point, Hedman, Vasilevsky? I know those guys aren't necessarily winning awards this year, but Vasilevsky has been tremendous in net and, would have been probably the Vezina, or one of the Vezina front runners had it not been for Hellebuyck. I get the Hellebuyck one because he was so good for Winnipeg. And if you looked at goals above expected, he was the runaway leader. But just not McKinnon. It's just mind blowing to me.
Yeah, I want to see how the voting actually shakes out. We could be talking about the matter of one or two votes, and if that's
the case, public, then we will find out.
It is public. Ryan will be shaming people.
Yeah, what are you doing? But for real, Nathan MacKinnon will not be forgetting. Nathan MacKinnon won't forget either. He remembers things. So real quick then. No. Okay, we've got our final three. Who wins it? Is it just Draisaitl then?
Oh, I'm going to say Cooch.
You think?
Really? I don't know. I mean,
Ryan's
probably
still just
Ryan just put McKinnon on his ballot.
Yeah, no, I had Draisaitl pretty high on my ballot. I can't remember if he might have been 2. So yeah, I'll go Draisaitl.
Maybe it's Hellebuyck, and it's just gonna be the craziest thing, because again, this is obviously all being voted on before the playoffs start. There's always that awkwardness when this happens, because it's a regular season award, but when you are if he wins the Hart and the Vezina, and then the Jets don't do what we expected them to be able to do because of his performance, it's going to be a little awkward at the award ceremony. You're coming up with these two and you're not getting the one you really wanted again. So I guess we'll have to see. But we'll be scratching our heads on that McKinnon one for a little while here. All right, hockey players, listen up. You don't need to drop a fortune on sticks. You can snag a pro-level composite stick without the pro-level price tag at Stix.com. That is Stix.com. Head over there, check out all the gear. And remember, if you join us for our post-game show, our Playoff Frenzy Live, you have the opportunity, if you engage with us and comment, to get some free stuff sent to you. So make sure you do that. I'll be on there later tonight with Michael Agello. All right, let's talk about some rapid fire. Taylor Hall extension, 3 years at a little over $3 million per. Do we like it? What do we think?
Love it. I think this is a cost-effective signing for a guy that looks like he's found a solid home in Carolina. Regular season stats, he put up the same amount of goals in Carolina as he did in Chicago, despite playing a lot fewer games in the playoffs. He hasn't been tearing it up by any stretch of the imagination, but hey, more goals than Nikita Kucherov. He's got a goal and 3 points in 5 games. So good on Taylor Hall. And, if it doesn't work out and he gets hurt again because injuries have been a concern, you're not really sinking a whole lot into him.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is $3 million today, with the cap rising, that's going to be 2.5. And you're basically looking at a depth forward. So to get a guy who once won the Hart Trophy as one of your depth guys, that's pretty solid work.
Hart Trophy guy for $3 million in this economy, Ryan?
I know, right?
So many bargains. All right. Well, the Utah Hockey Club YouTube channel briefly showed at Utah Mammoth as its handle. Little slip there when they must have been working on something. So not sure they put a statement out saying they were still exploring all three of the options. I don't know if they're just trying to cover their tracks or not. But if it's Mammoth, which it sounds like it could be, do we like it? What do we think of this name?
I'm in.
You're in, eh?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
I was Mammoth. Like in terms of the final three, I was Mammoth all the way.
Okay.
I think it's the most fun name, and they can have the most fun with the logo. If the leaks are true, I'm pretty fine with it, with the sort of elephant mountain head guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, because they didn't go with Utah Saints, which was my first choice, I'm good with
Ooh.
Mammoth.
Ride or die Mammoth. I was actually, the longer this was going, I was starting to kind of like the hockey club as the name. I was like, this is so different. No one does this. It's so lame. It's good. And then it also opens up the possibility of the fans just, anointing them the Yeti. And maybe you can't do it officially, but it's like, yeah, they're the hockey club or the HC, but really they're the Yeti. And, we
call
just
them
start
the
getting that third-party merchandise going.
Real quickly, the only thing I would say to that is, like, as long as, because the reason I hate HC is because it makes it so hard to write about.
Oh,
You
In,
would
like,
yeah.
like if you're talking about like Clayton Keller, you can't just say like, the Utah star and the Utah winger like over and over again. Like, it's nice to have the option of a team name, but if it was informally allowed that we could say like the Yeti's captain, I would be okay with it.
So you're gonna write the Mammoth Keller? You know how big Clayton Keller is?
The Mammoth
That is
winger.
gonna be
That doesn't look
that's
weird?
fair. Little awkward.
Fair enough.
All right. Well, we will see if the leaks are true. But it's a good option. I mean, I think there's some good opportunities. What I don't understand is why people online are so mad that there's another team. Like, I get it. There's a lacrosse team called the Mammoth, but like in the whole sports world, there are overlapping names. I mean,
Yeah.
the Clarkson hockey team is the Golden Knights, and Vegas is the Gold. Like, I mean, it's not going to be perfect. Other people can have the same name. I don't know why people get so upset about that. That's something I just have never understood. I guess if you're really a big fan, like that's your team and you don't want anyone taking it. But all right, let's talk about the draft lottery. May 5th, it's coming up. Who do we want to see it versus who do we think is going to win it? Bless
I'm
you.
gonna go Pittsburgh because Ryan's sneezing. So, Pittsburgh would have to take a massive jump. That being said, what do they finish? Like 9th worst in the league, and I think you can only move up 11 spots, so it's doable. Not a high percentage chance, but crazier things have happened, especially when it becomes a big market team winning lotteries. So, I think that would be great for the conspiracy theorists, and I think it'd be great for Sidney Crosby, who, maybe he'll just end up getting a young player that can jump into the lineup before he has to retire.
He can move right in. You can be buddies.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
I'm going to go Nashville because they certainly didn't intend to be a bad team this year. It just kind of happened.
Nope.
And also with Matthew Schaefer being the number one prospect, we know the Predators have a history of developing elite defensemen. And how cool would it be if you had Matthew Schaefer in the lineup at the same time as Roman Josi? Like, that would be the best mentorship we have seen in years, even if it doesn't happen right away because Schaefer missed a lot of this year due to injury. But once he would get to Nashville, Roman Josi would be like a fantastic mentor for him, possibly even landlord.
Good point. How many guys do you think are capable of jumping into the NHL, right?
You know what? It might only be like maybe one or two. Like it might be fewer this year than usual.
Hagens,
right?
Hagens,
maybe Misa could do it because he's he was exceptional status, so he's played in the OHL a year more than expected. Martone's a late birthday and he's big, so he's a possibility. But I think Hagens needs another year at Boston College, and then with Schaefer, he's the big X factor because again, not only is he a defenseman, but he missed most of the season due to injuries. So would you prefer him to get more reps with one more year in major junior or NCAA? Who knows?
Oh,
real quick bonus one for the draft lottery. Which team do you not want to see get it? just you're like, nah, you're done. No more.
Chicago.
Yeah, Chicago.
Yeah, okay. Just
Yeah.
not to bully Chicago.
They got
but
enough
it's just
guys
like,
coming up.
Yeah.
you
They'll be
got your
fine.
young guys, and right now Bedard is not having fun, and I don't really want to see another kid go there and just not have a good time. Just
How could you not have a good time in Chicago?
That's a good point.
That's true. I mean, they have Portillo's. They've got the deep dish. There's
Al's beef.
There you go. Good things in Chicago.
Ferris wheel
But,
too. You guys are leaving the Ferris wheel out.
Everybody has a Ferris wheel.
come on. All right. How about this last one? Laine entering the final year of his contract coming up next season, 2025, 2026 will be it. Do the Habs extend him over the summer, or do they let it ride?
I think they let it ride. I think, I mean, especially he didn't have a great postseason, obviously.
Yeah.
He showed spurts in the regular season, but it's like anything he brings you can get from Demidov, and you can get more from Demidov and cheaper because he's on an entry-level contract.
Yeah, if this was the Winnipeg Jets, I think you say extend them because you have a hard time attracting free agents, despite how good Winnipeg is. Montreal is at that point where, I want to play for the Habs because holy crap, did you see the playoff experience in Montreal this year? That is a great selling feature. And also they have a team, as Spencer Carberry said in his post game, that coaches are now really just kind of trying to strategize, how do we stop the Nick Suzuki line? So if I'm a free agent, that's a very attractive place to play. And whether you get Laine or another guy in free agency, I don't think you're going to have a hard time, getting guys to come.
I like it. Good stuff, guys. All right. So much going on. So much to look forward to. Big game tonight for Toronto. Make sure everyone that's watching tunes in after the game. I will be hosting our Playoff Frenzy Live, where we will discuss whether the Leafs have finally done it and they're moving on, or if we have a game 7 to look forward to. So make sure to tune in for all of that. But that does it for the Hockey News Big Show. For Michael Traikos and Ryan Kennedy, I'm Katie Gaus. Thanks for watching, and we will see you all real soon.